The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Window World of Western Mass, a local family business with experienced craftsmen offering wood, vinyl, and composite windows. WindowWorldOfWesternMA.com.
Welcome to the Fabulous 413. I'm Khalees Smith.
And I'm Monty Belmonte.
There's a whole lot of dancing in this show.
In the streets.
And at the falls, as dance is a big part of the Pakuntak Homelands Festival. And we'll speak with one of the dancers and educators coming to the gathering, Kitty Hendricks Miller.
And we'll sample wines that will make your taste buds dance, should you imbibe, with the Stolpman Vineyards Thunderdome at Dare in Lenox.
But first to Jacob's Pillow, where an innovative look at a style of dance that doesn't get much stage time has been chosen to be premiered on the Ted Shawn stage in Beckett.
And that work covers so much more ground than just dance.
That alarm is very much still going on. We're at Jacob's Pillow in Beckett, and I am with Melanie George, who is the scholar in residence and associate curator for the festival, and Sekou McMiller, who is here for week 6 of the festival, premiering his work, Urban Love Suite, which was phenomenal. It was really, really interesting to watch, especially because it involves so much social dance. But I'm actually going to start with Melody. You brought Sekou here the first time.
Yeah, so Sekou and I are siblings in jazz dance. And we have partnered on projects. He has brought me in, particularly because he is a curator at the National Jazz Museum in Harlem, and so he's brought me in. And a few years ago, we were coming out of a performance together because I know how great he is. I said, "What do you need?" And he said, "I don't have the support to get my work to the next level." And I said, "Okay, let's see what we can do about that." Yes,
challenge accepted.
And so the first stage of that relationship between Sekou and the Pillow was we have what's called the Pillow Lab residency program. And so he was here for approximately 10 days working on a version of something that's related to the thing we saw. Part of the lab program is that you don't have to necessarily outcome with a piece, like you use it how you need to use it for whatever stage you're at. And then from that, the folks I work with on the curatorial team were like, "He's amazing. Let's book him for the festival and put him on the Henry J. Lear stage, which is our outdoor stage." And actually, I wasn't here for his residency, but our director of production texted me and said, "Sekou's amazing." like truly, like beloved by every person he encounters. And so he did this show in the summer of 24 that culminated with a lot of people close to a fire code hazard on stage. I say that with in jest, but also to say that like people were so galvanized by the performance and the way that at the end he invites folks to be involved as community. And then we were in our curators meeting, which we meet every week, and Pamela Tadji, who's executive and artistic director, said, "What about him being the Joan B. Hunter New Commission recipient, which is a fund that was started by one of our board emeritus members. It contributes resources and funding towards the making of a new work." And so fast forward, I was looking at my email today. The meeting happened in October.
Awesome.
And now here we are in the last week of July, going into August, having seen a triumphant premiere of an ensemble of dancers and musicians of all shapes and sizes, of an age range of someone who literally just turned 18. I'm not going to out Sekou's age, but we are the same age, I think.
Yes, and tomorrow's my birthday.
And tomorrow's your birthday!
Yay, Leo season!
It has been an honor and a privilege to work with Sekou on this as dramaturg, as an associate producer, from the Pillow side as a curator, to have such complete faith in his artistry, knowing that you just have to give people space to do their best work. And when you do that and you provide resources, what happened tonight on stage is the kind of thing that is the result.
We hear a lot about how dramaturgs work in standard theater, but not often in dance. Sekou, what is having a dramaturg on staff for this production meant and changed about the way that you present it?
Sometimes offering like a different perspective or offering a question, not necessarily even a perspective, just an inquiry that allows you to maybe dig beyond the surface of something that you've already begun like scratching. They help to ground you, as Melanie, I said to her, because we had a section that was, because it's Urban Love Suite, so we had one section that was very, and we love it, like Eurocentric in its movement, that we do cross-pollinate. There was a question into this moment And then through that question, I found the reason, the what, the why, and the how. And then from there, it was the dancers. I asked the question to the dancers, and that brought this other space out in them. So I feel like they can challenge you, they can support you, and then sometimes they can just help you in diving deeper into things that you are already scratching.
I am with Sekou Miller, who's a choreographer. He's got a work, Urban Love Suite, just premiered at Jacob's Pillow for the rest of the week, and Melanie George, who is the scholar in residence and associate curator here at the festival. I got to see this work on opening night, and it's amazing. It felt like in the first part there was a motif of the stomp and of rooting. Can you talk about that particular element of your choreography?
Absolutely. So the first half is actually it's in my mind, it's rooted love, the entire first half, and then the second half is love actually. And so the first half is an homage to our roots and how we got here. So given the context to the space, and it shows up as, for me, it's very, it's actually what I actually relate to more, right? But I'm here living today. So it shows up in my body as present, but actual as future potential. And so I share with my people that surround me and also with the audiences that same root to begin with. And then the second act is called Love Actually. So it asks that the individual, including the audience, be themselves in this moment after experiencing the roots of where we're coming from. But then let us show you who we are today. And it's okay for you to be as well.
Brings up questions I have about where partner dancing fits in the jazz world, especially like the difference between partner dancing, social dancing, partner work, and then jazz group choreo.
It's all one thing. And the thing that's so important about the work that Sekou's doing is like the Sankofa, the idea of you go back to move forward. And so he's invested in the root, right? And if we think about the origin and evolution of jazz dancing in America, and I'm talking about real jazz dancing, I'm talking about jazz dancing that comes from black folks, that comes out of Lindy hopping, it's fluid. Sometimes you're dancing with the partner, sometimes you're on your own. Sometimes you're the dancer, sometimes you're the spectator. Maybe you jump on the drums and you play the conga for a little while. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and so this idea of everyone has a lane and you don't, and you're not jumping lanes is actually not the way community works, you know? It doesn't mean that, like, someone isn't going to have a skill that someone else doesn't have. That's different. Sekou gave these folks 400, 500, 600 years of history in 2 hours. And I don't even know if they know that. And in some ways, it's not important if they actually know the specifics of it. He took us from pre-Atlantic slave trade through the Middle Passage into the mambo craze of the 30s, 40s, and 50s, into soul music and neo-soul with these dancers who got to show up as themselves and didn't have to conform to all look alike. The work is so important, and it's so important that we see it on a stage for a run of this length, because typically the kind of work he's doing gets marginalized in stages like the Ted Shawn Theater. And so,
but I think like it's more than history lesson. Like what I saw in this work was an ongoing conversation. It's one of the core things that I know about bomba is that is inherently conversation between dancer and drum. And so having that framework of like some beats that were clearly like choreographed, but allowing that breath, that space to converse through body with all of the dancers on stage is an interesting way to tell stories. To double down on what you said, seems not just history lesson, but almost like going back to griot tradition.
Exactly the thought when I watched you on stage tonight, I thought, look at this griot.
Look at this griot. Telling stories.
So what about social dance made you want to pursue putting it on a stage of this type, to give it the flowers that it is more due?
The social dancing that we do, say for instance, like mambo, salsa mambo. I am a professional mambo dancer, but for about the past 25 to 30 years. And I've been on many stages just doing salsa, but always a choreographed number, right? And I was in it for a while until 2007, and I left it like flat. so many of my friends have done the same thing, and we like kind of like never look back. And some of us get disillusioned, and different things happen. But the first 5 years that you're in it, you are like in it. You can't even think about anything else. But then you become disillusioned, all these different things. So when I got the Pillow Lab residency, I sat with these people because some of them are current practitioners traveling the world, and they're teaching. Some of them are my former students from 20 years ago who are now, they are the hot thing in that commodity, right? They are the hot commodity in that space right now. And so I sat down and I go, what happens to us? Why do we start to hate it? Why do we leave the stage when we do it? And then what do we complain about? And we all talked about it. And it all came down to, once we transitioned to that space, we lost our love for it. And then we had to determine what was our love that we had. And it was the spontaneity. It was the meeting new people. It was the brand new. It was the play. And when you get up there and the whole thing is a job, and you got to impress in your next choreography and do the next best trick, and it becomes sterile. Impressive but sterile, it becomes gymnastics. Mm-hmm. And so we were like, okay, let's go. So I give choreography, and then you give a response. And I can see that they were choreographing their responses. I could tell that's choreography because you did the same thing twice. And so really challenged ourselves to get back into the improv space on stage. However, just like in jazz music, there is a form. So I chose to choreograph in the form of a jazz standard. Lay down the rhythm, lay down the melody, and then let dancers solo over that, being supported by the rhythm section being the community. So we allowed the other dancers to be the community as one dancer became the soloist over the form. That way we're in conversation, blending very well with the jazz musicians. The jazz musicians say, oh my God, they love it. So then all of a sudden we're back in conversation with music. We're also calling this the renewing of the vows between music and dance. Right?
I feel like I want to just interject and say, because I don't think enough people know this, Sekou was a classically trained flautist, and so he speaks the language of musicians as well as being an award-winning dancer. So a couple of months ago, we were in residency at Holy Cross University, and it was so fascinating to watch. The band was in one rehearsal space, and the dancers in another space, and just watch Sekou run back and forth across the corridor and adapt how he needed to communicate to get the thing across, to accomplish the thing, and then to see how he bridged those things when he brought everyone together. He's truly unique in this field, beyond virtuosic, because I think you can be virtuosic and not be able to communicate. And the thing that Sekou can do is, again, this is an eclectic group of artists, and he is a communicator. You know, to put on something of this scope, it's a really big show. It's deceptively big, and the fulcrum is this man.
How hard is it to choreograph around a live band on stage?
They become a part of the consideration. So like they might even be the impetus. So it might be even easier to choreograph for them on the stage. Sometimes it is difficult, but I would say they're part of the ingredients. You know, it's like they're making it happen. Like sometimes it does get complicated, I should say, because they have to be specific sometimes when they don't want to be. But then I have to lean into that because it's like, oh, they're still living that other life that I'm talking about we want to get to. So it's inspiring, but yeah, it can be difficult sometimes.
And I'll just say from what I observed, they also have to be non-specific when you want them to be too. It's really it's really like fascinating to just like sit back in the rehearsal space and just watch things happen and be like, I see where the disconnect is happening in this communication. But I think it all comes back to, like, all these people, there's this shared sensibility that comes from culture, you know, and so they're speaking variations of the same language, and that cuts through a lot of nonsense. You know, when you know that, like, okay, maybe I don't like the way so-and-so said this thing, or maybe I don't know what this phrase of movement is, or maybe I'm stressed out because opening night is a long day. But at the end of the day, we come together because we all speak a similar language. And right now, audience, what you can't see is these dancers have had the longest day. They went from tech to dress to show, and they are in the pub at Jacob's Pillow still dancing in this Latin jazz. And that's community from this man. Again, that sense of like knowing who the folks to invite into this family to be able to create a work that is bigger than being professional dancers on a stage.
I am with Sekou Miller and Melanie George. How important is it to maintain teaching elements in the choreography that you present to the public?
Teaching or sharing, right? So I think it's very important because the context, like a contextual understanding is much different than one of your own, like volition. Like if you're just going by your own experience, that's one thing. But then if you get the context in which things were created, who did it, when they do it, when they do it, and why did they do it, that might sit differently in your body, in your mind, and in your soul, and you might be able to connect to that movement, to those people. So I think that the sharing of new information or the uncovering of information that may have been lost or may not be accessible to certain communities, I think is very important in bridging the gap of understanding. Yes.
Thanks so much for taking some time with me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm just so proud, like, that people got to see the thing that you do. Like, it's so wonderful.
Sadly, tonight's performance on August 1st has been canceled, but you still have 3 other performances of Sekou McMiller's Urban Love Suite to see through Sunday. Check out jacobspillow.org for tickets and information on this and all of their other performances this season.
And big thanks to Kendall Lockhart at Jacob's Pillow Festival for helping us make that chat happen. It was so fun. We'll introduce you to a festival where you can meet peoples who have populated this land for literal millennia when we hear about the Pecumtuck Homelands Festival from someone who'll be performing there, Kitty Hendricks Miller.
But first, a family with a mission to take care of the earth and the people who join them in their winemaking endeavors with the Thunderdome of Stolpman Vineyards at Dare Bottle Shop and Provisions in Lenox.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by the UMass 5 College Credit Union, dedicated to creating access to financial well-being for local people, businesses, and communities. Insured by NCUA, umass5.coop.
Well, the Wine Thunderdome has returned to the Berkshires. In Lenox at Dare Bottle Shop and Provisions with Mary Dare and Ben Dare. And I had Ben Dare before I went to go see John Baptiste at Tanglewood a couple weeks ago. Stopped in beforehand, got to introduce you to my wife, grab a couple delicious wines. I grabbed your razor clams in a can. This is the only place
back in stock.
I've made my 12-year-old obsessed with razor clams. And they ain't cheap, so it's always like... They made for excellent Tanglewood provisions, and John Baptiste was fantastic.
I mean, that tracks. Pax has pricey tastes.
He really does. Loves lobster, that kid. He's going to make me broke. But you have a Tanglewood event coming up that we will talk about. But what are we drinking here, Mary Dare?
Today, we wanted to focus on a couple different themes. One is thinking outside the box for refreshing summer sippers. You know, it's easy to reach for a super crisp and cold white wine or Vino Verde with a little bit of bubbles. But we wanted to feature 2 wines today that sort of take you outside of that classic box, but still bring the refreshment and can cool you down. So we have 2 wines from a winery that we greatly admire from California, Stolpman Vineyards. They're located just north of Los Angeles, around the curve in Santa Barbara County.
No tariffs affecting these wines, so that's one thing to keep in mind.
Well, you know, that's what's wild about this whole roller coaster ride that we're on with the tariffs. We think that it does only affect, you know, European or wines coming in from overseas, but then we have to think even about domestically the glass that's used or the corks or the stoppers on, you know, all the raw materials essentially that are going into the product. So it's really like kind of unfortunately all encompassing, but definitely hits harder for those wines coming from overseas. Yeah. So yeah, wanted to give you a quick rundown on Stolpman Vineyards. This is a family property, dates back to the 1990s. So
5 years ago?
Yeah, exactly. Tom and Marilyn Stolpman are the first generation. They found this incredible, literally a ridge, a limestone ridge overlooking the ocean, which they fell in love with and were able to pursue their dream, which was to one day own a vineyard and make their own wine. He had a previous career in all sorts of different industries beforehand, which allowed him to buy this beautiful estate. So it's kind of one of those rare, not rare, but in California, it's less, frequent maybe than our European counterparts to have estate-grown fruit from a California winery or wine brand, just because it comes down to a lot of times real estate. Stolpman Vineyards is definitely one of those incredible and few wine brands that actually grow their own fruit and bottle and produce their own wine. So Tom and Marilyn were the first generation. It is now his son Pete and his wife Jessica who run the show, and his parents are still very much involved, as is the vineyard team as a whole, which is something that I'd like to highlight and that helps this winery to stand out. But first, in your glass, while you guys are sipping it, I'd like you to know what you're drinking. So they call this their Ballard Canyon Vin Gris. And I'll describe for you guys on the radio here, but it's a darker hued, kind of looks like either a very light red wine or a very dark rosé wine.
Yeah.
And they did that purposefully. But you definitely want to be serving it cold. And,
What are the grapes in it, though?
So grapes are...
Gamay and Trousseau.
The Gamay makes so much sense.
Yeah, the Gamay was the first thing I smelled, because
There you go.
strawberry
Bubble
bubblegum is
Yes.
Gamay all the time. Very first note I got. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
what was the
they're-
second grape?
Trousseau,
I don't think I know that one very well.
a classic grape from the Jura region.
Ah.
So you found of France, so
Yeah.
kind of a counterpart northeast from Beaujolais, where Gamay is original.
Cool. And Gamay and Beaujolais kind of got kicked out of Burgundy because it wasn't serious enough
Right.
for those Burgundy snobs. So.
Talked all about that.
Yeah, but the Dare family has changed my mind on Gamay.
We're big fans of Gamay.
It can do really lovely things. We can't judge them all by the terrible things that have happened to us in the past.
Right, but this is light and fruity
Yes,
because of
yeah.
that. Yeah.
And super strawberry-y on the palate.
Yeah, it's really fresh and lovely. So these guys, obviously this is a classic California sunshine, warm climate, but they do have this special little pocket here in this place called Ballard Canyon that allows them to be able to really work with and have grapes that will thrive.
This has really nice acidity too, and
Yeah.
it's got more minerality than I ever expect on like a California wine of this type. I know you said they grow near limestone, and you
Yes.
definitely get a little bit of that. Please don't
Wrong
die.
tube.
I'm not sure if our insurance covers that. Please don't die.
Cleared it out right away. Almost came up through my nose.
And yeah,
It does have a bright acidity. I can smell it now.
yeah, it's just really cool. I was gonna say other things, but then like worry stepped in, and
Yeah.
now I have no worries.
I'm gonna be fine.
But I'm really glad you mentioned that, Kelly. The limestone is what attributes to this incredible freshness and just that minerality that you mentioned.
The name of the first one again?
So this first wine is the Vin Gris Ballard Canyon from Stolpman Vineyards.
There's a baby behind
There's a
you.
baby behind me. It's distracting me too. Yeah.
Monty is always distracted by babies.
Babies and dogs and cats will distract me. Oh yeah.
We've
How's
almost
your
had
Chihuahua?
You remind me today of a small Mexican Chihuahua.
She's great. No, I was just gonna say we almost have the trifecta. Then we've had the dog, we now have the baby. We just need the cat next time.
Yeah, right. Maybe in the bookstore next door. They need a
Yes,
bookstore cat.
there we go.
Okay, what's the second
All
wine here
right,
at Dare Bottle
so
Shop and Provisions
I'm
with
gonna-
Mary Dare and Lennox?
For this next wine for you guys, this is called the Crunchy Roasty.
So don't tax my gig so hardcore, Cruster.
It is a Syrah Red. So again, tasting Stolpman Vineyards. Crunchy Roasty is a really fun nod to the Côte Rôtie, Rhone Valley. So these folks here at Stolpman admire greatly. That's their happy place for wine, would be Northern Rhone Reds. And then again with California, they have some symmetry where they can produce some work with grapes that also do really well in the Rhone Valley. So Syrah is one of them, but they do this in a completely, I like to say separate style from the Côte Rôtie. There are some things that they share, which is in Côte Rôtie, it's mostly Syrah, but there's a little bit of Viognier, which is co-fermented with that big, strong, bold grape to sort of lighten it up a little bit.
And Viognier is a white grape.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yep. So they bring that into the mix to be able to add a little bit of freshness to help it sort of tread a little bit lighter. And I think that they've nailed it.
I got to try my first Côte Rôtie ever when Table and Vine decided to put all their fine wine at 50% off. I was like, I'm getting one of these and one of these. Finally, I
Yes.
loved it. But I love this as a style.
One of their categories is called So Fresh.
So fresh and so clean, clean.
And it's wines that are made, for reds especially, to be chilled. They are wines that are light, still satisfying on the palate, but just tread a little bit lighter. And this falls into that category. So this crunchy roasty is a red that you can pop into the fridge. You want to, serve it, and it's best enjoyed with a little bit of a chill. And
I am an advocate for chilling all your reds. Don't drink it at room temperature when it's 95 degrees out there. It's gross.
Right, 100%. What do you guys think of this?
This is
Syrah?
zippy.
Yeah.
It's got this lightness that I couldn't quite put my finger on, and then I got it on palate, and I was just like, oh, this bounces.
It's hitting my tongue in a really incredible way.
Yeah.
Like it feels sharp, like a sharp cheddar on my tongue.
Yeah, but
and there's a deep funk in this wine that is I love this style of funk. It's like you love the smell of your own brand.
No.
You know what I mean?
No.
So let's talk a little bit more about what makes this winery extra special. Not only, as you guys are tasting, do they make incredible wines, and a lot of them. These are only two of many that we carry and many that we've carried over the years and that they produce. But what makes this winery extra special is their team approach. The senior, Tom, when he first purchased the land and started his winery, he said that if he ever owned a vineyard, it would positively affect everyone involved. And so what they mean by that, and what they've done since day one, is employing a full vineyard crew that's employed year-round. A lot of times, especially out west in the California vineyards, they'll have their vineyard crew, but they go around the state throughout the year for different farm projects. But what is difficult about that is people can't really put down roots. They can't raise their children and keep them in one school system, or maybe their families have to separate because they aren't able to move everybody every 3 months. So the Stolpmans made that their MO.
Modus operandi.
To keep a full-time crew employed. So not only prioritizing family life and the well-being of that family unit, but also providing them that economic stability. And then what they do to take it even further, so they have, for example, a crew of 28 full-time vineyard workers. They're working the vines in the vineyard all year round, but they have their own cuvee, their own wine that the Stolpman family has allocated them. So it's called La Cuadrilla, the crew in Spanish, and they are able to, they reap 100% proceeds of that wine each year. To give you an idea too of the volume, that one wine represents 10% of the production that this entire winery does.
That's cool. It's almost like having a worker-owned co-op,
Yeah.
but for 10% of
Exactly.
this, or 100% of this small part of your vineyard, which is really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I'm now getting like an incense.
Charcoal you get in the bag, not burned charcoal.
Right.
Something to think about in wine, and when folks are, maybe they've just opened a bottle, it has something going on, which is the result of fermentation, result of the bottle shock of traveling. It's kind of a good, thing to maybe talk about in the 101 of wine tasting,
Yeah.
where you really want to be able to give, and we're talking mostly reds here, but definitely can apply to certain whites or rosés or orange wines. But for reds, you really want to be able to give your wine time in the glass to breathe, swirling it around a bit. And just like you noticed, Monty, your wine in the 6 minutes it's been in the glass has evolved already.
Yeah.
It's why I make us go back for second tastes, because it will have changed.
Right. It just makes it
100%.
longer to edit.
Sorry, I gotta be thorough.
But it's true, it comes back to always remembering that wine is just like any other farm products. It's a living thing. There are certain wines mass-produced, those big brands where it's factory, essentially it's factory farmed. So it doesn't have that soul that wine's made on this scale by real people who are really invested. There's just a special nuance to them.
What's the name of the second one again, Mary Dare?
The second one was called Crunchy Roasty, and it's a little nod to the Côte Rôtie, which translates as roasted slope in French, because the Côte Rôtie is this crazy hillside that lines the Rhone River, and it's super, super steep, and it's facing west, so it faces the sun, southwest, and it just gets roasted all day, and that's where those huge, big red Syrahs are coming from. But again, like this wine, there's a little bit of Viognier, that white grape that's co-fermented in, that just gives it the ever so slight featherweight.
Well, as we continue to see how these two wines evolve and taste them again before we vote in the Wine Thunderdome of which one we'd want to take home, Mary Dare, tell us about what exciting thing Dare Bottle Shop and Provisions is doing down the street here in Lenox with our friends at Tanglewood.
Yes, we are so excited to be partnering with Tanglewood for the return of an iconic food and wine festival that was a thing in the past. It took a hiatus right around COVID, and they're bringing it back this year, and we are honored to be partnering with them. So it's called Tasting Notes, the Tanglewood Wine and Food Festival.
I see what you did there. Well done, Tanglewood.
That's a good one.
So it's
They
happening.
didn't do a champagne event called the Boston Pops. Come on,
Here we go,
next year,
Monty.
next year.
Yes, the festival happens on Saturday, August 16th. It's going to be an afternoon event, and what we're doing this year, and of course because it's Tanglewood and in honor of all things musically inclined, we will be featuring a selection of wines that all have a strong link to the world of music. Could be musicians who have turned winemaker, or musicians who have invested in a winery. Anyone really along the gamut of also of genre, from pop artists like John Legend. Andrea Bocelli is one of
His
one of the
family
brands
makes
that-
surprisingly excellent wine.
Absolutely, yep. Some Italian production. John Bon Jovi's got some rosé that we'll be featuring.
Oh yeah? Don't listen to last week's show.
Wines.
What do you think about the first one, second time through here,
I
the
still
rosé?
quite like it. Going back, the nose smells like a bag of pretzels, like Utz pretzels.
I like the very basic label of this one. It's just white with a beautiful like illustration of a cactus on it.
Their labels stand out, especially that wine. Crunchy Roasty is this like, it looks like a tie-dye shirt.
This smells like prickly pear now.
The second one, even though there's a cactus on the first one.
Yeah, but the second one, the Syrah Viognier blend, smells like prickly pear.
I'm
and
still getting
petrichor.
the thing I got at the beginning
look,
last time,
it's-
but not quite as much. And incense, again, very much so. And like cranberry sauce that's made from scratch, not cranberry sauce in a can.
Like when you make good mincemeat yourself. Though I guess I'm choosing.
Does that mean you already have your vote?
Yeah.
Which one?
The Crunchy Roasty.
I wanted to hate the Crunchy Roasty because of the name. I was like, Crunchy Roast, can you get more California than that?
So don't tax my gig so hardcore, Cruster.
But then the fact that it's homage to Côte Rôtie, which I love, and the fact that the label does look kind of cool. It looks like a hypercolor t-shirt. Did you ever have them in the 90s?
Yes. No, we were poor.
What about you, Mary Dare?
I'm also going with the Crunchy Roasty. I think these guys, I love all the wines they make, but especially their reds. One thing I did want to mention too that makes and sets them apart, makes them unique, they dry farm their entire vineyard. So nothing is irrigated, which is also very rare for California. And what that does is it forces the vines to dig deep, and you get much more expression and just power out of your grapes, essentially, because
They have
those
to work
vines are-
so
yep,
hard to make the fruit.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's why I don't give my children any water, so they have to develop deep roots. They fruit better, they become better people.
I don't know if that's working with Pax. It has expensive taste, as we mentioned.
That's right. And also I have to buy a gallon of milk every freaking day. Ben Dare was very busy with customers here at Dare Bottle Shop and Provisions, so Ben does not know how we voted. Ben Dare, it's your vote.
I go with Syrah, Crunchy Roasty.
Unanimous.
Wow.
It's just such a delight. For light reds, like, this is really impressive. I could hand this off to one of my only white-loving friends and start to get them to turn. Your face.
I was going to make a comment about your only white loving friends.
I live in Western Mass.
Well, these are both delicious, but the Crunchy Roasty in particular, that is a really fascinating, multi-layered wine. And once again, Mary Dare and Ben Dare, you'll be at Tanglewood
Yep,
for
August.
tasting notes, August 16th.
Another part of this festival we love is that there's local restaurants that will be participating. So we have a few neighbors from here in town, Cello, Dr. Sack's house, that are going to be providing food options and just tasty things to snack on while you're sipping wines, all in just the heart of music here in Western Mass.
Not to bring your favorite word back in, but Dr. Sack's house definitely sounds like something we can't talk about on public radio.
Look at, I thought it, but I didn't say it. I'm rubbing off on you in the wrong way.
I hate this.
Ask me to say it.
You say it.
You can see the full list of restaurants that are headed to the Tanglewood grounds for the Tasting Notes event and grab tickets by going to bso.org.
Now to find out more about the festival in my backyard with Kitty Hendricks Miller of the Mashpee Wampanoag people, who'll join many more folks at the Pecumtuck Homeland Festival. You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Northeast Solar, homegrown in Hatfield, Massachusetts, and providing energy savings for their customers for over 10 years. Learn more at northeast-solar.com.
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413, the 12th annual Pecumtuck Homelands Festival, a free celebration of Native American art, music, and culture, returns to Great Falls this weekend at the Unity Park Riverfront from 10 to 5 this Saturday and Sunday, August 2nd and 3rd.
Featuring over 40 Indigenous craft vendors, history talks, kids' activities, and more. A presentation by Mohawk Elder Tom Porter with a ceremony that begins at the waterfront at 5 this evening.
Music by Nipmuc flute maker Hawk Henrys, Akwesasne singer Teresa Bearfox, Abenaki singer-songwriter Brian Blanchette, and the Penobscot Reds Dog Singers.
And they'll be dancing Wampanoag social dancing and Hawaiian dance ensemble featuring our friend Roberta Uno and openings by our other friend Justin Beatty.
Oh, nice. The event is presented by the Nolambika Project with support from the town of Montague's arts organization, River Culture, as well as many more community partners.
We are joined by one of the folks who will be part of the Pecumtuck's Homelands Festival, Kitty Hendricks Miller. Kitty is a Mashpee Wampanoag educator whose career started as an early childhood ed teacher in public and private schools, specializing in music and movement.
When she found a lack of cultural education, she shifted her focus to offer Wampanoag programs. She's worked as the Foodways supervisor at Plymouth Patuxet Museums, formerly Plymouth Plantation, and was the education planner for the Aquinnah Wampanoag tribe on Martha's Vineyard.
She now plans cultural programs at the Mashpee Wampanoag Indian Museum and performs with the Wampanoag Nation singers and dancers. She also consulted on the PBS show Molly from Denali on the episode about the history of Thanksgiving.
Welcome back to Public Media, Kitty. That was what was so interesting to me, that Molly from Denali program was based out of Boston, right?
Yeah, it was.
Well, let's start there. Tell us about how you connected with that program that was about Indigenous folks, I think mostly from Alaska, but kind of spanned the gamut. And again, sadly, due to some of the cuts, is no longer going to be producing episodes, last I heard.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking, but I was lucky to have my community, my Mashpee Wampanoag community, included on that platform, and it was a really great experience. They, Yadabe Evans, she actually contacted me to consult and to tell her a little bit more about our people, and mostly to focus on Three Sisters gardening. And for us, it's our traditional way of growing. So Molly and friends were setting up a Three Sisters garden, and it was all about interactions and supporting each other as the plants do, different stages of their growth. And the characters on Molly, had these little altercations, but by the end of the episode, with learning about Three Sisters from the Wampanoag visitor that was a friend of one of the main characters, came and introduced them to that concept. And it all worked out in the end, as things do when you work together and support each other, which is what we do in our Native communities, and it transcends into all our relationships, no matter if you're a human being or plant, we all have to coexist.
Because Molly, being from northern Indigenous peoples, might not have had much interaction with the Three Sisters in the same way that the children in the Wampanoag tribe might have.
We should probably talk about, for people unfamiliar with the Three Sisters, did we say exactly what they were?
It's squash, corn, and beans. You grow them together because they help each other.
This will be 2 times in 2 weeks that I'm publicly advocating again that I think that the Massachusetts state seal and flag should be replaced with the Three Sisters.
I mean, that's a really great idea.
It's not my idea. It's kids, I think, at Wildwood Elementary School in Amherst, where we'll be next week or near there on the show. And we're speaking with Kitty Hendricks Miller, who will be part of the Pecumtuck Homeland Festival this weekend and who was an advisor on the PBS show based out of our parent company, WGBH in Boston, Molly from Denali. And before we let that aspect of it go, the episode, though, that you were consulting on did have a lot to do with the Thanksgiving story, which we've covered on this show quite a bit, but the mythology behind that. What was that like to have an opportunity from the peoples who were involved in the historical event to be able to counter-narrative the popular narrative that we see so frequently around Thanksgiving in November in this country?
They interjected that, and that was really important, the most important thing, actually, to let people know that we're here, here we're 40 minutes away from where the English first made landfall in Patuxet, which is present-day Plymouth, Massachusetts. They had a book, and it had the picture, the stereotypical picture of the first Thanksgiving with everybody sitting at the table, with what we think and what most people grow up thinking of Thanksgiving. And so part of what I consulted on was, what the menu consisted of and how it was more so a show of good faith, having Massasoit, the great leader, to accept these people as partners in a relationship that was, you give us this and we will return favors and we will support you. So it was more like a treaty, a show of force and a show of strength on our part, the Wampanoag part, to know that these are the people that you are making this agreement with, which is pretty much when you give your word, that agreement is kept. We all know how that works with treaties today with all Native American communities and nations across this country. So this was like the very first of those type of treaties, those type of agreements. It was very much a political kind of situation, not so much as we're just great buddies because we're still feeling each other out as people living side by side in the clash of cultures. So that was, a little bit deep for the way I'm explaining it, but on the child level, they really got it. We talked about the strawberry Thanksgivings. We have the green corn harvest, which is another of our Thanksgivings, and of course we celebrate the last food of the season in October with a cranberry Thanksgiving. So we also talked about how we just don't celebrate Thanksgiving one day a year.
I love it. And I love that, and it's shamelessly plugging public media again, that PBS is a place where people, young people in particular, in this case from Molly from Denali, can learn truer histories and perhaps the histories that they have been originally exposed to. And we're speaking with Kitty Hendricks Miller, who will be part of the Pecumtuck Homelands Festival on the banks of the Connecticut River, where a horrible history happened 299 years ago. But it will be a celebration this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, on the banks of that river.
I mean, to continue our shameless plugs, but also a place where you get to encounter other cultures that you wouldn't necessarily get to in your community, especially if you're not on the coasts, and have more access to some of those communities and some of those cultures. But in respect to that, education, not just about your people, is your deal. How hard is it to create events at festivals and occasions like this that really do inform people in kind of short form? Because you've only got 3 days here with the greater public sometimes.
And a lot of times we have an hour.
Yeah.
Especially through our performances, the Wampanoag Nation singers and dancers, we do, when people get up and they make contact with you, they celebrate with you, that makes it a lot easier. So that's why what we do as performers is very important. Storytelling is important too, because everybody has a story to tell. And so that's why as Native people, we try to build our stories up and uplift them, because it is an oral history, and, all these stories are still alive. I don't know how many times you can say we are still here, but that's what it always ends up being.
We had Angela Marcelino, who's the author of the cookbook and memoir, The True Natives of Cape Cod, Massachusetts, and Their Foodways on this show months ago. And it was amazing to hear about the continued history, especially of the Mashpee Wampanoag and the living history that has essentially been uninterrupted. I mean, interrupted, but also consistent throughout the duration of these last hundreds of years in the area where you live, Kitty Hendricks Miller.
Yes. Actually, I had lived in Falmouth, which is one town over, for many years, and wanted to return to my homeland, to Mashpee, just because everything, you're connected. You have all of your memories, landscapes, roads, and the favorite beaches, and, the memories of the Mashpee Pond, the Mashpee Lake, which is we are all connected to. And all of those memories come back, and you really want to revisit them because it makes you more grounded as a Wampanoag person. We have Wampanoag tribal members all over the globe. A lot of, when we were in whalers, back in the heyday of whaling, people were dispersed. Men were out there, and they're working on those ships, and some men jumped ship because it was such a tragic existence. But also, we have relatives in, Australia areas, all around the world. But it's always important, if you can, just to come back and connect. And that's what we do with our 3-day homecoming Mashpee Wampanoag Powwow, which is every year during July 4th weekend. It's a 3-day celebration, and it's a homecoming where tribal members come home. They bring their young ones if they want to receive their native names, their spirit names. That's a ceremony at sunrise that we have the naming from a medicine man. That's really important for people to touch base. Where your blood and bones are from is important. Our land is so beautiful. Everybody wants a piece of it. Everybody wants to experience it, which is what we all experience every summer when we're inundated with traffic and cars and people. It's still our homeland, and, it's not out of our hands to be taken care of because it's threatened. The native species are threatened. The water, you can't even go swimming in our favorite ancestral gathering space because of the cyanobacteria. Even under all of these threats, we still call it home, and we still have our connection. We'll have to pass that down to the generations that they are inheriting this. And as you know, the stewards of the earth and so forth, it's going to be an uphill battle, but it's what we do as Wampanoag people, and that's why we're still here after 400 plus years of contact.
Do you feel like there's a different way that you teach adults as opposed to children about your culture?
Oh, wow. Children is so much easier. They get it. You really feel like you've done something at the end of whatever session, or how much time you have when you get through to somebody. And a perfect example is a traditional ecological knowledge workshop that I have once a year in conjunction with Walk-White Bay Research and Reserve. And it's a NOAA institution. It's a Teachers on the Bay kind of program, but we've morphed it into more having just a Wampanoag workshop. So it's a group of educators, and we usually have about 20 that sign up, and we always, fill very quickly. Teachers are able to see one of our traditional bark houses, also Wampanoag cooking, gardening. The first day is everything Wampanoag, everything that we would have done had we been able to live the way our ancestors lived. So when you live that way, you connect automatically to all of these things we have separated. Everything is separated now into art, into gardening, into music, into storytelling. But when you are exposed to the way of life, when you are connected to the estuaries, to everything around us, it's a different kind of learning experience. And the teachers just thrive on this, and they love it because that connection is there with the science that they have to teach. By the end of the 3 days, we've gone around the table at the end of the sessions, and I've had people busting to tears that they were so moved. That's just a huge history for them that they were never aware of, and just being there, learning firsthand from us. A lot of people have changed their perspective. I've had guidance counselors come from the local schools that came to know how to deal with their Native parents and Wampanoag children if they go through some kind of a grief or, tragedy or loss. How do we deal with that? We want to deal with it how the tribal community would deal with it. That right there is like gold, just having these educators reaching out to know.
Mm.
We're speaking with Kitty Hendricks Miller, who is from the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe and who will be part of the 12th Annual Pecumtuck Homelands Festival, which is happening this Saturday and Sunday. But I should mention there is a ceremony along the banks of the Connecticut River. That there's a peace walk right now during the course of this show, but a ceremony honoring Tom Porter that begins at 5 along the banks of the Connecticut River. And before we let you go, Kitty, you're going to be teaching people over this weekend how to make corn husk dolls. Can you talk about the importance of corn husk dolls to the Mashpee Wampanoag people?
This is one of my favorite things in grade school that I got to do.
And I love the fact that dolls transcend so many different cultures.
It really does. Maize, how they say it in South America and up into North America, that's their word for corn. And Wiachimaniash is our word for corn, which means more than one kernel. Well, it's important because the corn is a life sustainer. She's the sister that kind of holds everybody up. And corn takes so much out of the ground that beans needs to support that. But being a life sustainer is very important. And so we try to use every single part of that corn, which is the husk, right? You can use that when it's green, which is when we eat the corn. When it's green and delicious, it's in the milk stage, so it's delicious. But if you can preserve it and dry it, then you can have it anytime you want. But you can also save those husks. So we save them, we dry them. It teaches fine motor skills for young people. And that's the biggest challenge is doing this activity, because most kids can't even tie their shoes. Mm-hmm. So this is helpful for them to learn how to braid, to learn how to do these tying, to create this doll. And I always actually call them action figures. My friend Anouan kind of coined that phrase because
I love it.
If you ask a little boy if he wants to make a doll, he's going to say no. But if you say you want to make an action figure, then chances are he's going to participate. So it's important, just because it's fun. You're learning something, you're learning a fine motor, but you're also making a toy. And then a lot of kids ask, why isn't there a face? There's a lot of stories of why the doll has no face, but I always tell people, this way you can imagine different emotions. One of the stories is that she gazed so long into the pool because she was so beautiful that an owl came down and took away her reflection. And that was why she didn't have a face, because she was not tending to her community. She was not fulfilling her responsibilities to her community by taking care of the children. So there's so many ways you can go with that, which is great when you can keep stories alive like that. It's a total learning experience, and it's also fun.
You'll have an opportunity to have that learning experience as part of the 12th Annual Pecumtuck Homelands Festival, with some ceremonies going on along the banks of the Connecticut River in Great Falls, Pesky-Umskit, Turner's Falls, as some people call it. Right now and this evening, as well as all day on Saturday and Sunday, we've been talking with Kitty Hendricks Miller, a member of the Mashpee Wampanoag Tribe, an educator, an artist, a contributor to PBS and our WGBH station, Molly from Denali Show. Thanks so much for joining us here today on the Fabulous 413. I live in that town, so I'll see you there this weekend.
Katapatanu, Peace Kanas.
You can get info on all the folks and events for the Pecumtuck Homelands Festival by heading to the Nolambika Project's website, but the event itself is free.
Next week on the Fabulous 413, we watch music on screen when we learn about the Sound and Vision series at Amherst Cinema.
And we'll celebrate the birthday of another radio station as Valley Free Radio turns 20.
We'll discover the Fresh Grass Institute with its director, Sue Killam.
We'll hear new contemporary composers at the Etchings Festival at Bombyx in Florence.
See a new sculpture in a cemetery at Wildwood Cemetery in Amherst.
And discover all the ways that you can just walk around that cemetery, too. We'll meet the musicians and conductors helming Tanglewood on Parade live from their grounds.
Double Live Music Friday with Calliope Jones and Sierra Fregale to make up for the lack of music today.
Yes.
No Live Music Friday
No,
today.
but we had lots of dancing, which implies music, I feel like.
I think so, too.
Even if you're at a silent disco, there's still music happening. It's just that nobody else can hear it but you.
Indeed.
Dance like there's nobody who can listen to the music with you.
Dance like there's nobody playing music. I'm Monty Belmonte.
I'm Chloe Smith. Have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday on the Fabulous 413.